So it's a quick video on basic maintenance of the Spartan Sentinel system. So here's one I prepared earlier in Blue Peter style. You see it's all clagged up. And what I'm going to do is deal with it in two halves. I'm going to clean the head unit first, and then we're going to move on and deal with the leg units. So I'm going to take out the three legs, separate them from the body. Now, when I take the head unit, if I unscrew the top cap, as you can see here, that will just unthread. And then I can take hold of the ball joint or spigot fitting with the magnet in the top. I'm going to simply pull that out, and as you see there's a ball joint on the end there. And you see there's the top bearing cap, and these are made of Delrin, so they're very hard wearing, self-lubricating, and as part of our inspection we'll be looking for any defects in the ball joint or the shaft, and also looking for wear or cracks on the bearing cap itself. If we look inside, we can see there's a small bearing cap at the bottom of the main body, and this is what clamps the ball joint together. So if you've really got that fine dirt or sand that's just really embedded everywhere, then you can remove that bearing cap and just leaves you a simple sort of hollow shell there, and that's really easy to clean. All I'm going to do is I'm going to find some clean water. We happen to have a little stream here. This is fine in the field where you haven't got a tap. I can rinse this out in the fresh running water. Got a small brush, be a toothbrush. Thank you, Mr. G. He doesn't know. Give that a little scrub off, and then a bit of dry cloth, old t-shirt, scarf, doesn't really matter. All you need to do is just give that a dry off, and the same with the ball joint, and then we can put this back together. Simply a reverse. What I would recommend is that if you're in sort of damp conditions like we've got in the UK most of the time, then a little bit of grease. This is a silicone grease. Nice thing about this, it will stay on the threads without migrating too much, and keeps them all running smoothly. So a little bit on there, a little bit on the internal threads. And then just rebuild that in the reverse order. So the bottom bearing cap goes in, the ball joint goes into the main body, top bearing cap goes on top, and then the top cap goes on and threads on to the main body. Just check the function, and that's good to go. Moving on to the legs. Now there's a little bit more involved in this because we've got to strip the legs out completely. So I'm going to start with the lower leg section. So taking hold of the lower leg joint, I'm going to unscrew it fully. It's quite long threads on here. This is deliberate because it makes this joint particularly strong. The nice thing about it is there's very little to lose with this, doing this in the field. So if I take out the lower leg, at the bottom of the lower leg, under the rubber boot, you've got the tungsten carbide tip and the removable foot section. If these are chipped or snapped or worn, then again, these are a replaceable serviceable item, particularly if you use them as trekking poles, and we can replace these. So if you contact us if they're broken or lost or damaged. The carbon tube itself, I say, just needs really a wash off if it's covered in mud or grit, and then drying. And the upper leg joint here, this is the leg stop. This prevents the leg from coming all the way out of the upper section in use. Now it's really important when you inspect this to make sure that it is in good condition. So when any kind of cracks or anything like that, then the unit needs to be replaced. Again, it's a serviceable item, we can replace these. Wear marks through through use is fine, providing it's still doing its job, and the leg isn't coming all the way out. It's very important to check that it can rotate, and this is important because this guides and locks the leg when it gets to full extension. So again, all I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse that off. Obviously inside here we've got some threads, so it may be appropriate to use a small brush, get in there to clean the threads out. Again, what we don't want is, particularly we don't want sort of sand and grit covering the threads, because that will just make use unpleasant. Take that out. Okay, so drying it all off with our cloth again. And that's about it. Very simple. Midsection, same again. Unthread the midsection completely from the upper section. Again, we've got a slightly bigger but leg locking piece here. It needs to rotate freely, be firmly fitted so that it's doing its job. Additionally, what we might want to consider is if we're getting dirt and grit actually up into the tube with this section, this midsection, then we've got a couple of options open to us. We can just try simply rinsing it out, try and loosen them, and that's fine. If we've got embedded crud on the inside of the tube, particularly say the fine sand and grit, which is going to start to affect the operation of the leg extensions, then what we can do is we've got a couple of options. If we've got the luxury of having a cleaning rod with us, then we can simply put a bit of rag on the cleaning clod and just very gently wipe it out until the upper tube is clean. Moving on to the upper section. Again, we've got a lot of crap around the handle here, foam handle. Put it in, give it a wash off, rub off the bigger lumps of mud, take out a bit of cloth and give her a wipe off. We've got exposed threads on the outside here, so we're going to pay particular attention to those, give them a wipe off, make sure they're nice and clean. And then, like the middle section with the upper section here, we've got again a couple of ways of doing that. Again, we can take our cleaning rod and just dry out the inside, removing any dirt or grit that's accumulated in there. A little bit of silicone lubricant around the threads and the O-rings. If you're in very sandy, gritty conditions, then I would use a dry lubricant rather than the silicone. What you don't want is the sand and grit sticking to the threads and the O-rings on the joints. The joints are designed to keep the dirt out, but as you know, the sand will stick to that kind of medium. Now, it's very important when you come to reassembly that you notice that both of the leg stops have two flaps on them. Now, there's a reason for this. The carbon fibre that we use in our tripods are made specially for us, and the carbon tubing correspondingly has flaps on it as well. So if you just try and wedge this in, you'll find you'll meet a lot of resistance. If I turn this very slightly, you'll see that just slides in there. I'll just do that again, because this is really important, because if you try and force this in, what you can do is you can actually damage the carbon. So just gently rotate that leg stop until it just slides into the carbon tubing. I'll do this on the sections I've just cleaned. So here's my top section and my middle section, and I'll offer this up, and you see that won't go in. So if I just by gently rotating that upper section now, you'll see that aligns with the flaps of the leg lock and slides in. So a little bit of lubricant on the threads, and we can tighten that up. Same with the lower leg section. Say cleaning our threads, applying a little bit of the lubricant to it, just holding the leg lock and rotating the upper section until we get the alignment. Sliding up our leg locking thread and tighten that up. Okay, loosen off the legs, make sure they're flowing easily, no restriction, that's good. And same with the lower leg section. That's good. And that is pretty much it for maintenance of your Sentinel system.